Shut up, you just might learn something. Welcome back to Elevate and Illuminate, the Empowerment Podcast. I am your host, Jamarcus Fields. I am also the founder and executive director of Iron Sharpens Iron WASP Incorporated, where we are stronger together. Um, Welcome back. Season 4, episode 4. This season, we're concentrating a focus on statewide reentry services. Real conversations about what it takes to turn second chances into real opportunities. Because reentry doesn't stop at release. It truly begins with access. Access to employment, training, and the confidence to step back into the world with purpose. Tonight's episode is all about second chances in action. We're joined by a great friend of mine, wonderful lady, from Goodwill Second Chance Program. They're in South Bend, Indiana, a program that's helping individuals overcome barriers, build skills, and reconnect with the workforce in meaningful ways. This isn't just about jobs. It's about rebuilding confidence, restoring dignity, and creating pathways to long-term success. So if you've ever wondered what it really takes to go from overlooked to employed, from uncertain to empowered, this conversation is for you. Let's elevate, let's illuminate, and let's get into it. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Um, I want to take a minute, give you a second, allow you to introduce yourself to the audience, let them know who you are, what do you do. Um, yeah, the floor is yours.
All right, good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Beverly King. I am the vice chair on the board of Iron Sharpens Iron WASP. Yay! I am also the essential skills trainer at Goodwill in South Bend, Indiana. And as of the 18th of this month, I will have been in that role for 8 years. Can you believe that?
Mm,
8 years.
okay.
I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, all these things. But I am the good friend of Jamarcus Fields, and it is an honor for you. It's an honor for you to ask me to be a part of this great podcast and just, inform people as to what's out here. So thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. Did y'all hear that? Essential skills coordinator.
Trainer,
How
trainer.
trainer. How dare I just call her a facilitator?
Well, they changed my position. They changed my title. It was WDS facilitator, but now they changed it to essential skills trainer. So yeah.
Okay. That part,
And
that part.
and
Yes.
and and um Goodwill has now changed it from second chance. It's now called missions, which encompasses second chance. So
Okay.
it's now missions, and it encompasses second chance and all the other programs that come with missions. So
Because y'all on a mission.
yeah.
Okay. Um, so again, welcome everybody for tapping in to episode 4. As usual, if this is your first time here, the chat room is always open. So feel free to ask any questions, any comments in the chat room, and or just get to know who's in the chat, who else is on live with you. As Ariel has already tapped in. Let's go, Bev. So feel free to hop in the chat room, ask any questions, make yourself a part of the conversation. We welcome it. So with that, let me just jump right on in. For starters, for anybody that's who may not be familiar, what is the missions program and who is it designed to serve?
So missions specifically second chance, right?
Yeah.
So It is designed for those who have been incarcerated. Um, it is designed for um, men and women who've served considerable time, whether it be in state or federal prison, those who've been in jail. It is also for those who are justice involved. So they've, I don't know, because of their criminal background, they've been out of work for a long time. And because of their criminal background, they're finding it hard to find employment. It's for those who are underemployed and unemployed.
Okay.
So they just have barriers. Maybe that's due to drug use. They've just been out of work for a very long time. But primarily, we serve people who've been incarcerated and serve time.
Okay. So I know you said you've been there 8 years in
Mm-hmm.
that position. How
Yep.
long has the program itself been around, or is it the same? Like, did you start it?
It's no, 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 no. I didn't start the program. It has been going for years, way before I got there. How many years exactly? I'm not sure. But in my role, I've been there for 8 years. Yeah.
Okay. So for and and I'm assuming. So I'm going to take the place as the individual that just assumes that you've had no justice involvement. Don't know if you were related or connected to anybody that had. So what was it about this position that attracted you to the position, knowing that it was incarcerated individuals? Because that's typically a terrain that people kind of want to steer away from, especially if they haven't had any involvement, because there's a vast disconnect that you'll find from the culture that we live in, and then trying to figure that out. So what was it that drew you to this position? And then since you've been in there, like, what impact has being in that position had on you in your personal walk?
Great question. So, where do I begin?
Uh-oh.
uh, if you haven't already figured it out, those of you who are watching, I have an accent and I'm not from around here. I'm from the UK. And believe it or not, until I came to this country about 16, I was going to say 18, 16 years ago, I had never been connected to anyone who had been incarcerated or justice involved until I came to this country. So I have no background. I ain't about that life. I'm not about that life. I
Okay.
had no connection with anyone who'd been justice involved or anything of that nature. So I came here and it really was the only way that I can put it was divine intervention. That's the only way I can put it. Because I
Okay.
had no intention of getting a job like this. But a friend of my husband called him and said, your wife needs to apply for this position. At the time, I had this part-time job, wasn't particularly happy in it, and called my husband and said, your wife needs to apply for this position. And I was thinking, why is your friend, you know, asking me to apply for a job? He doesn't even know me like that. He doesn't even know my background. And my background actually is, it started off in music, then went to fashion. And then for 10 years, I was in customer service, head of customer service. Um, so it was just really strange to me. But anyway, my husband said, go take a look at what he's talking about. And so I looked up the position. And the first position that he mentioned was for GVI, it was group violence intervention. And I was like, this is not appealing to me. Um, it was for an outreach coordinator, and they would be the first civilian responders when there was a shooting in South Bend. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. Mm-mm. So then he kept calling my husband and was like, "There's another position going," and I was like, "What is the matter with this guy?" And so I, yeah, I was just like, so I checked, and it was for a facilitator, WDS facilitator. I was like, "What's that?" Workforce Development Services. I'm like, "What's that?" I don't know. I ain't from around here.
Right.
So I looked at the job description. I saw what it was about. I showed it to my husband. He was like, "I think you could do this." And I'm like, "I have no experience in this whatsoever." And he said, "But I think you could do this though. Just apply." So I applied reluctantly. I got called in for an interview, and the first interview was with like three people in the department. And as I was going through the interview, I was getting intrigued, like, this kind of sounds interesting. Um, I had three interviews. My last interview was with the vice president of the department. And by then, I had an inkling that maybe I could do this and maybe they're going to offer me the position. And I
Okay.
believe it was the next day after my interview, they called me and was like, "We want to give you this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Um, what made me want to do it? So initially, when I first started teaching, I was shadowing my colleagues for the first 2 weeks, and they had no curriculum. Whoever had been facilitating before me left me with nothing, and so they was just like, showing videos and what I was like, this cannot be it. And I remember my first class with 9 re-entry guys. And you've got me with no background in this. I am sitting shaking in my boots, like, because I've just got this image of what I thought incarcerated men were like. So I've got
Mhm.
9 of them sitting. They've all got white t-shirts and jeans on. And I'm like, what is happening? This is just like, no, and they all sitting there mean mugging me like, all right, that wasn't a mean mug face, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so I once I got into the groove, it probably took me about 2 months, if that, to really start building a curriculum. And once I got into the groove of things, I realized that this wasn't a job. I realized it was an assignment. And
Mm.
that's why I said it was divine intervention, because I realized that it was beyond a job and it was an assignment that I'd been called to. And yeah, I think that answers your question.
It definitely did. Um, so before I dive into the next question, Megan, Amaya, Elise, love y'all. Mwah. Um, so now you've come in, you've, I think it's safe to say, rearranged the whole program, came up with a curriculum, kind of gave it, some direction, if you will, based off your personal needs assessment. As you begin to see individuals come in and see, what the needs were, what they were lacking, where the gaps were. So what does a, like, when someone signs up for the program and they come through there, what does the journey look like? Like once they
Okay.
come in, without, of course, giving us too much, but what is the journey like for them?
Okay. So when I initially started, it was kind of like a one size fits all type program. It is no longer that. It really is focusing on the needs of the individual. So um when we get referrals or people do walk-ins, and so the first step is intake. So they see the intake coordinator, they take basic information about that individual, and then once they have a pool of people, you come in for a group orientation, and then you meet some of the other staff members and they give you like an outline of basically what you're about to get into. And then people can say yes or no, whether they still want to be a part of the program. After the orientation, then they go to they may, depending on their needs, they may be assigned a success coach. The success coach is going to be looking at barriers, like to, remove certain barriers before coming into the program that may stop them from coming into the program. So
Got
things like maybe they don't have adequate housing, they don't have proper transportation, they don't have childcare, stuff like that. Um, they then go to assessment, one of our assessment coordinators, and they'll probably have an hour uh, interview, as it were, with them. And that's really going more in depth in what their issues are, what their backgrounds are. Their background check will be pulled up and kind of see what's going on. And then the assessment coordinator is then going to decide what path they're going to take, basically. That's then where I come in. Some people may come to me, some people may go directly into job search. Um, some people, yeah. So the next person will be me, which essential skills training. So they're assessing the individual and saying that, they need some type of training before they move any further. Once they get past me, which is like a 2-week class, then they will go to uh, work experience orientation. So now you're doing the legal paperwork to do work experience. Work experience with us is paid. There's other organizations that do work experience and it's not paid. It's not a lot of money, but it's something. So they go into work experience orientation. Then they are placed somewhere within Goodwill to do work experience. So it could be in production, it could be in the industrial services, it could be in one of our stores. Um, yeah. And then after work experience, sometimes they may be hired into Goodwill, or sometimes during that process, they will be doing job search with a career navigator, and they may find them a job within the community. Whichever path they take, be it working at Goodwill or working outside of Goodwill, they are then put into retention. So we have a retention specialist who then tracks them for about, I think it's 90 days. No, I think it's more than that. I think it's about 120 days, something like that. They
it.
track them just for their progress. Are you enjoying what you're doing? Are you having issues with your employer? Whatever. If they're having issues, then they come back in and we'll kind of not completely start the process all over again, but they'll go back to a career navigator to kind of help them with job placement. So that's kind of how that works.
Okay. Um, Also, Misty had a question. Thank you for answering that in the chat, Stephanie. So it's actually called the Missions Program now for Second Chance, um, in South Bend. So you mentioned like your first class you had, there were 9 reentry guys in there. So is this a referral program? Do you guys take walk-ins? Like, do people walk in off the streets, or is it all
Yep.
referral coming from other organizations?
It is walk-ins and referrals. So we can have referrals from the Reentry Center, Dukem Center, uh, Life Treatment Center, Upper Room, um, Center for the Homeless. Who am I missing? Hope Ministries, YWCA. These are where we could be getting referrals from. But then, like I said, we can just have walk-ins. So, yeah.
Okay. And you also spoke about when as part of their journey when they first come in, like sometimes before they even make it to you, they've gone to see other people to kind of iron out some of these barriers. Now,
Mhm.
even though that's before they get to you and that may not necessarily be your lane, once they come to you, what are some of the you know, the major barriers that you hear of individuals, that would kind of prohibit them as part of their reentry process. Even if it's not just that, I'm looking at the whole of the barriers that returning citizens have when it comes to trying to get employment, or in this case, even get the proper training and job readiness for. What are some of the more common barriers that you see and experience?
Oh my gosh, it's a plethora of things. So I think the main thing is the the bias that employees have towards people with criminal backgrounds. Um,
Okay.
so they apply, they have a background check done, and as soon as the employer sees the background check, it's done. It's over with. And so you have, you know, clients coming in who just like, man, I've put in 10 applications, I've put in 15 applications, I've probably been to 2 interviews, like nobody wants to hire me. That's one of the major barriers, the bias that employers have towards justice involved individuals. Um, the other thing, I think the thing that stood out for me, and one of the main things that I made apparent in my teaching, was self-awareness. I think that's a
Mhm.
major barrier for a lot of people. Um, they give themselves labels, unnecessary labels. I say unnecessary labels, but for them it rings true. I'm a felon, I'm an addict, they're giving themselves these labels. And it really is encouraging them to understand, look, you are more than this. This is not the totality of who you are. Um, Whatever, securing stable housing. Housing is a major barrier for a lot of people who come through our program. Um, looking at notes so I don't miss anything. Stable housing, lack of transportation, um, limited formal work experience. So if you've been down for like 30 odd years, 20 odd years, yes, you may have worked in the prison system, and not that that's irrelevant, but you don't have a long history necessarily of work within the community. And sometimes there is also a bias towards that, when people go to apply for work. So there's big gaps in employment history. So that can be a major barrier. Um, Lack of recent training or education, um, dealing with debt, having to deal with substance abuse and mental health issues. Mental health is huge. And since 2020, since COVID, we have seen a lot of people coming in with mental health issues. It's off the chain. So these are a lot of barriers that they're facing. People are going through major depressions and all kind of things. So
Okay, so once identifying um, these particular barriers, you're
mhm.
dealing with a participant who has housing issues, um, maybe on top of mental health issues as a result, of everything that they've been through, other than like job placement. What other services, like what other things do you guys do to prepare them for this long-term success?
So the good thing that we have is we have partnerships with other organizations.
Yeah.
So we're connected to Oaklawn. So a
Okay.
lot of clients, actually, for a lot of people who have mental health issues, it is a prerequisite that they must be a part of Oaklawn or some type of therapy before they come into our program, because we are not therapists. We're
Right.
not licensed therapists. So they need to be in some type of therapy, treatment, medication, something, before they come to us. Otherwise, they're not job ready.
Correct.
Um, uh, who else are we connected to? As I said, housing is a major issue. We I'm not even going to lie, we still struggle in that area trying to find people housing. Um, so there may be independent people that we come across, that we can connect to. We're always looking for organizations, or I think we had two friends who started like a private home situation, um, where people can go and they've got programming there. So there's those organizations that we can send people to. Um, what else? Am I missing something? I think I'm missing something. I can't think. I went blank.
Okay. Well, I mean, for the point that I was trying to drive home, you answered it very well. Um,
Hmm.
because I've recognized, since I've been home doing this work, that a lot of times, when individuals show up for a program, like, not all, but there is a very large number of them that are already in crisis mode.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
when they show up in crisis mode, they're showing up to organizations that aren't first responding organizations.
Hmm.
Meaning, you don't show up at the door, you're in crisis mode, I need a job, and we got you a job before 4 p.m. Like, there's typically programming, some assessments that need to take place, some other things that we need to address first.
Hmm.
Um, but of course, an individual that's in crisis mode, he's not trying to sit through a 3-day program. He's not trying to sit through a week-long program. He's not trying to go through the they're in crisis mode. So that's why I wanted to ask, like, outside of course, not being a first responding organization, what things do you guys have in place to help these individuals, so that for our listeners who either may be in need of those services or
Right.
know somebody that is, that we can make sure we're preparing them before bringing them, that we're not going to go down here and then you're going to end up with a job today. Like,
No,
the
no.
program where the program has to program. So
It's
that was the
it's
point that I wanted to get through.
it's a process. And so if somebody comes in and they're like in serious crisis mode, we have a success coach. They're assigned a success coach. And so the success coach will work with them prior to them even getting into the throes of the program, because we need to try and eliminate these barriers first before, because you're not job ready, you're in crisis.
Right.
Even though you're saying, I need a job like yesterday, but you got mental health issues going on. You may have an addiction that you might still be in active addiction. We need to get you some help. We're not going to do that, but we're going to put you in touch with somebody who can help. So
Right.
that's that. Once you can prove that you have now gotten that help, you can come back and now we can get you into programming. And so then they
Absolutely.
go through the assessment process, and now we're assessing certain things. And then they'll say, okay, well, for a more wraparound service, you then need to come to essential skills, which is where I come in. And so, as I said, what I found was it's easy to do the interviews and to teach you how to do interviews and teach you how to do an application form correctly, and how to present yourself and workplace ethics and all that kind of stuff. That's the easy stuff, but getting them to take a look at themselves is a whole different ball game. And that really is
Mm.
where I come in, and I think um that's where my strong suit is. And that's what makes what I do different from a lot of other people. I see
Okay.
the individual.
So that leads right up to where I was going next. Thank, thank you.
You're welcome.
um, so okay, before I even get into the next question, what is your approach and how do you deal with the what I'm going to call a barrier? If it's the wrong terminology, correct me when you answer. How do you approach and address the barrier of individuals coming into the class that aren't taking accountability? They aren't in this space of acknowledging where they are, the help that they need, and like they think they got it all figured out. Because you're talking about some guys that then went down, did some time. There's something said for individuals that go down and do 20, 25 years that because I conquered that, I can conquer anything. So like I'm good. I'll be all right.
No,
What's your
you
approach?
ain't.
What's
No,
your
you
approach to
ain't.
that?
My approach is no, you ain't. um, very, very good question and a very challenging question because I treat each individual as an individual. I can't, it, I take you as I find you, basically. I take you as I
Mm,
find you. So you are so correct. There are guys who've done a considerable amount of time and they think they know it all. And I guess the approach that I take is the environment that you were in is not the same environment that you're coming into now.
okay.
The rules that govern where you were are not the same rules that govern where you're going. And so this is why primarily you have to deal with a mindset shift, basically. Change your mindset. You're not going to
Mm,
be in the same environment. You think you were running stuff whilst you were incarcerated. Nobody cares about that when you get out. Who cares? Nobody cares. I always say there's guys that come in and they sound very intelligent and they've read lots of books and all of that. That's all very well and good, right? But it's all theory. You have no practical application to what you're talking about. And so I don't I don't um I don't address this in a patronizing type of way. For the
mhm.
most part, I just let them talk. I let them talk and then ask certain questions and they get stumped like, eh. So an example, when I was with you, an individual who was like, it's all about that paper, it's all about that money, it's all about man, I'm hit the ground running, I'm grinding, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm like, okay, all right. You think it's all about money, but that's what got you in there in the first place. Your your obsession with money. Do you need money right now? Absolutely. You need money like you need air. But the mindset that you have towards, I need this paper, I need this money, it needs to shift. And so my question is, what would you do even if you wouldn't get paid? Your passion can't solely be about money. It can't
Right.
solely be about that. Because then you will start to move in by any means necessary, which is probably what got you in there in the first place. So we have to shift that mindset. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
So, yeah, I'm not, I treat each person individually. I don't look at I look at the class as a whole, but even within that whole, I'm looking at each individual person. It's just the way that I'm wired. I can't do a blanket teaching, if that makes sense. I can't because everybody's different. Everybody's experience is different. And so I have to meet each individual where they are. And so, yeah, some people come with this, they think they have it all figured out. And for the most part, some of them might have it figured out. But there's little pieces that they're missing that they're not aware of. And so I'm there to make them aware.
Absolutely. Um, that was one of the things about your teaching style that I liked. Um, I was very conscious of how I felt people looked at us, treated us, even when we were in programs, the way the facilitators addressed us. Because one big pet peeve of mine is I do not like being generalized and
Mm,
typecast with everybody else.
right.
So when dealing with this specific population, and this is not to say that other individuals don't, I'm not, I'm just speaking of my own journey. Like, there is no cookie cutter approach.
No.
A cookie cutter approach is viewed disrespectful from us, because what it does is tells us that you're just generalizing. So if you start off like that, then that to me feels like a bit of judgment. And so now I'm on the defensive
Friends. Yeah.
because you didn't even get a chance to get to know who I am,
Yeah.
as opposed to just knowing we are, so they all are. So I have to teach all of them. I don't like that. And that was one thing that when I came in, I had my defenses up. And when I say when I came in, I actually went through her program when I was at the reentry center in South Bend. And it was a pivotal step in the journey. If I'm completely honest, when I went to the program, which was why I just asked that last question, I was one of those guys who came in there and thought I had it all figured out. I had it all figured out. Who is this? What this little lady finna tell me about re-entering back into society? Um, I just need them to open the door for me, and I'll figure it out, and I'll be okay.
Right.
And actually learned a lot in while I was in the class in terms of where my own personal gaps were. So that's why I asked, like, what was the approach? And the sense of discernment that God has given you to complete this assignment is is huge.
Wow.
Like,
Thank
not only
you.
did he give you the assignment, he prepared you for the assignment, and you can see it in the way that you deal with individuals. Because I tell people, like, throughout my reentry journey, I've had my wall up, and I give people what I want to give them, and I
Yeah.
allow them in as far as I want to allow them in. The whole time I'm keeping this wall up, though. Like, I'm peeking around the wall, I'm talking to people over the wall. Other than my wife, you are the only individual that has tore that wall down
Wow. That's
without
huge.
me just letting it down, like tore it down. And that was because of the approach and the way you addressed it. You didn't generalize, you addressed me as an individual and my own personal needs. Um,
Do you remember
so
what you called me?
I salute you for that. I do not, but it's
You called
clear
me
that
you called me the wrecking ball.
that part
You
to
called me
to
the
not
wrecking ball. I was like, that's so hilarious to me.
to,
But it was so funny because when I saw you sitting in the back of the class, I was like, yep, challenge, challenge. I actually get energized by guys that come in like that. I really do, because I'm like, not saying I don't have all the answers, but it's a challenge for me because I want you to, or I want the individuals to, okay, for instance, I saw the confidence, I know who I am, I know, I saw all of that. But I was like, there's got to be something in there. There's got to be something in there. And for me, that's the fun part about what I do. It's the digging, it's the asking the questions and asking the right questions. And like I said, like you said so rightly, it's a God-given gift because I tell you, sometimes I'm talking to individuals in the classroom and I'm like, this is not me. This is not me. I don't even know where I'm going, where this conversation is going, but it's going somewhere. And then the light bulb goes off and I'm like, that's it. Got it. Got it. So, yeah.
Okay, I wanted to acknowledge a couple statements in the chat. So Ariel said, "No way you live in an essential mental health ward for an X amount of time and think to return to so-called civilized society and readily acclimate. Not possible." And then Misty said, "But you have to have money to live. If you have no support, how do you stop and let it happen, even with PO on your back about money? They don't care what you're saying."
That's very, very true. That is
Very.
very, very true because we have guys that come in all the time who's like, "Man, Miss King, I hear what you talking about, but man, I need that paper because this PO," and they are stressed out. I get it. And unfortunately, the 2-week class that we have is not paid. They're sitting in a class for 2 weeks. But I will say this, we do our assessment coordinators and sometimes me myself will call the POs, talk to them. For the most part, they do know what these clients are getting into. Most of the time, they have referred them to us, so they know they're not going to get paid. So you can't stress them about money and, add that additional stress because eventually money's going to be, coming through. Um, but I understand that like pressure of I'm sitting in this class for 2 weeks with no money coming in. I've got this fee to pay, that fee to pay. What are we doing? And so the beautiful thing about what I do, how I do it, is usually, and this is like for real, usually by day 2, they're like, I get it. I need this. I didn't
Mhm.
realize I needed it. I was peed off that I had to come here, but this is actually more valuable than me getting some money right now.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot. And that's not trying to toot my own horn. It really is what I hear a lot. It is getting dark in here and I didn't put the light on. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You are good. At least for
Okay.
now. The darker
Yeah,
it
I'm
get,
like,
that might change, but you're good for now.
yeah.
Um, so curious, what's been one of the most powerful transformation stories that you've witnessed from one of the participants?
Okay. This one really, it really touched me. It really touched me. There was a guy who was down for 23 years. He was down for, was it homicide? Yeah. He had an extreme guilt complex, just burdened with what had happened. And so we talked about it, and he felt so much shame, so much guilt about what he'd done. And I said, I get it, but you served your time and you're about to get out. You served your time and you're about to get out. And he just couldn't get past. He just was like, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve that. So in my classroom, there are 3 different types of chairs. There's like a real hard one, um, real hard plastic. Then there's
Mhm.
another one that is like plastic, but it's got a little bit of cushioning on it. And then I was like, then we've got like the luxury, what I call the luxury chairs, which is, kind of real recliner, real comfortable, big, whatever.
The one I
And
was sitting
so
in.
no, you were sitting in the cushioned one.
I was leaning
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
Nah, go ahead. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
So anyway, three different types of chairs. So anyway, we were having this conversation about self-worth, or what do you feel that you're worth? And so I said to him, you're about to get out, you really want to get this apartment or whatever. And we were working to try and help him because he wanted to stay in South Bend. He wasn't from South Bend. He wanted to stay in the area. We were helping him with housing and stuff like that. He was a re-entry guy. And so I said to him, let's imagine when you get your apartment, which chair do you think you deserve? And he was like, what do you mean? I said, do you deserve the hard plastic one, the one with a little bit of cushioning, or what I consider to be the luxury chair? Which one do you think you deserve? He said, oh, I could just make do with this hard plastic one. This is good enough for me. And I was started talking to him about self-worth and, like, you know what, you're worth more than this and da 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 da, whatever. So he eventually left. He got a job, and I heard that he had got into the apartment and whatever. And one day I was out and I was shopping, and I was in Macy's, and I was about to go up the escalator, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's that guy from Reentry. And he was going up the escalator before me. And I was thinking to myself, do I go and approach him, or like, what do I do? And I was like, no, just leave it. Just don't say anything. Let him do his thing. I was just so happy that he was free.
Yeah.
It was just nice because he was just like walking around, just looking and browsing and whatever. So he goes up the escalator. I go up behind him. And on that floor is the furniture department. And so I'm kind of, just off. And he's walking around the furniture department, and he's just kind of like looking. And I'm just looking at him and I'm smiling. Right. And then I go off and I do what I'm doing, and I just left it. I was just like, it was just good to see him, but let him do his thing. It was probably about a year later, and he came, reception called me and said, hey, so and so's here to see you. And I'm like, who? And forgot his name. I see so many people and I forget names. I'd never forget a face. So I looked up on my system because I knew I had a picture. So I'm looking, I was like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Send him through. So he comes through and he's like, Miss King, I had to come and see you. And I was like, okay, what's going on? So he's like, I've got my apartment, I've got my job, and things are going really well. And I got married, and I really want you to meet my wife. She's outside, but I just wanted to talk to you first. And I'm like, okay. I said, before you say anything else, I said, I saw you in Macy's some time ago, not long after you got out. And I said, I saw you on the furniture department, and I saw you, just kind of looking in the furniture department. And he stood there and he kind of leaned his head to the side. And I said to him, you got your apartment. Which chair did you buy? And we just stood there looking at each other, and he just started to cry. He said,
Wow.
Miss King, Miss King, I got the luxury chair. He said, I got the luxury chair. He said, because when I was looking for furniture, I thought about you and what you said and what my worth was. And I feel even choked even now. He said, I remembered that I deserved the luxury chair because I'm not my past. And he
Mm,
just embraced me and we just cried. He said, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And he said, can I go get my wife now and introduce you to her? I said, absolutely. It was like, it was so powerful for me because I
yeah.
remember what he was like when he first came in. He was so broken. And even after doing 23 years, he was so guilt ridden. And I was like, you're not going back to the area that you committed this crime. You know, I know that you feel all this remorse, but you have to now move on with your life, and you've got to rebuild your life, and you have to see the value in yourself. Man, that thing was so powerful for me. And the
Right.
other story is you. The other story is you. Even though I knew that you came in and you had it all together to a certain extent, you hit the ground running. You hit the ground running. And the day that you came to me and you brought me that letter and said, "Man, you wrecked me. You're a wrecking ball. Thank you for seeing me, and I feel like we could be friends for life." That thing touched me because I was like, of all the people who I've serviced, there is something different about this guy. I don't know what it is, but there's something different. And to see your journey and to even just being here on this podcast is just, this is success. This is success. And the way that I look at it is I was just a small part in your journey. And it's an honor for me to, I'm getting emotional. It's an honor for me to, I didn't know you in the 26 years, but hearing about your journey and seeing where you are and the fact that you care enough to give back to the same people who were in your position and doing it on the level that you're doing it on is just this is major. This is major. And you should be proud. You should be proud.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Um, as I'm as I'm listening, as I was listening to the first um story, I just in my head seeing I kept telling myself about that's one of the pieces that is missing. The,
Absolutely.
hu- the humanity. Like when I'm so serious about thank you for seeing me,
Mm,
like it's the humanity. We grew up in an inhumane society. We were treated less than humans. So to come back, to a degree, most of us carry so much guilt. And regardless of how high we hold our head, how much we poke our chest out, there is still a sense of worth in us that is damaged and is
yeah.
below market value because of how we already feel like we're going to be judged, how we already feel like we're going to be treated. Um, and to have somebody that sees you despite all of that and will give of themselves to pour into you,
Yeah.
that's so pivotal. So pivotal. So I thank you again for being obedient to
Thank
that
you.
calling um and allowing God to work through you to be his hands, his mouth, and help the individuals that are returning to society.
Yeah.
It's too many of us coming home for people to just not pour into us.
Yeah.
Especially those that are trying. Like when they trying and we showing up to programs and we standing in lines and we doing this, like we trying.
I'm just gonna
So
turn
thank
this
you.
light on real I'm gonna turn this light on real quick.
Okay.
Oops. Yep, hopefully that helped a little bit.
So and it did. It
Yeah.
definitely was starting to get dark.
Yeah.
Um, so what gaps do you see or do you feel still exist in reentry services?
Oh, we.
And as a whole and when it comes to workforce development.
Um, Training programs that are not aligned with um actual employer demand. Um, so we have training, we have skills, you can get certifications, you can do all that kind of stuff. And after you've done all of that, for the most part, people are going into entry level positions,
Right.
right? Entry level positions. And I really feel that there needs to be a pool of employers where it's not just an entry level position job, but they have a career pathway. I could make
Right.
a career. And for the most part, I don't see that. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but it's very few and far between. Very, very few and far between. So I feel like it's so going back to what I was talking about earlier with, the biases that employers have. I told you I was never trained to be in this type of work. But the
Right.
guys that I've come across, I said to one of my girlfriends at one point, I said, I never thought I'd say this, but for some of these single women that are out here, their husband might be in prison. Because there's some good, not serious. There's some good guys, solid guys that I've come across in my years of teaching. And so the same way that I feel about, well, they could be fit for a relationship, what makes them not fit for employment? Because they
Absolutely.
made a bad decision?
Yeah.
They're good, decent individuals, and employers are just looking at the record and like, no. But you're not looking at the individual. So it goes back to what you were saying. Most people are just seeing you as, what is it? Did you have a 6 or 7 figure number? Whatever number that you had to keep calling out every time, right?
Right.
And you're not a number, you're a person. And you're a person who has the ability, if you want to change. And employers need to see that.
Absolutely.
Employers need to see that. So I feel that is a big barrier. Um, Another barrier, I've got some notes here. Another barrier is, so most of the jobs that they're put into are warehouse work, temporary labor, food service, and day labor, right?
Hmm.
And
Correct.
more programs should connect people to skilled trades, union apprenticeships, tech or digital careers, entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
right? Entrepreneur. There's so many guys who I come through. I'm like, you could easily have your own business, easily have your own business. But how are we connecting people to services that will help them start their own business?
Right.
It's it like I said, I'm not saying it's not out there, but it's very few and far between. Another barrier um is having no ID, no work clothes, no stable housing. Um, these are things that are not always addressed. Yeah, those are some of the gaps that I see.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
And education, lack of
Oh yeah,
education, lack of education.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So, man, this has been a great conversation as we get ready to wrap up. Um, for anybody who may be in position of, just coming home, still trying to get their feet on the ground, trying to piece this thing together with doubts, um, with or without support. Um, If they're listening right now and feeling discouraged about finding employment, what would you say directly to them?
I would say that you are more than the worst decision you ever made. You are more than the worst decision you ever made. Um, you still have value. You're valuable. There is not another you on the planet. When God made you, he broke the mold. He broke the
Mm,
mold. There's only one you. Um, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And so, yes, doors may get closed in your face. You may get a lot of no's, but somebody is out there who's going to give you a yes. And why don't you give yourself a yes first?
mm. Starts with self. Got me ready to go find a job. Oh man. So as we as we close out tonight's episode, one thing should be clear. Employment is a critical piece of reentry,
Absolutely, yeah.
but it's not the only piece. A job can open the door, but it's the ecosystem that keeps it open. Workforce development, housing, healthcare, mentorship, community support, all of these pieces have to work together for reentry to be sustainable. That's why programs like the missions program, offering second chances, don't just connect people to jobs. They help prepare individuals to walk into opportunities with confidence, skill, and purpose. But no one organization can do it alone.
Right.
We've tried. That's how we realize we're stronger together.
Yeah.
Real real transformation happens when systems align,
Yeah.
when partnerships are strong, and when people are willing to invest in second chances, not just in words, but in action. If tonight's conversation challenged you, take the next step. Share this episode, start a conversation, open a door for someone who just needs an opportunity. And if you want to learn more about how we're building peer led pathways and connecting these systems on the ground, visit Iron Sharpens Iron, WAST.org, and get involved. Until next time, keep elevating, keep illuminating, and keep building ecosystems where people don't just come home, they move forward.
That's fantastic.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much
Everybody,
for having me.
yes, yes. Everybody, thank you for tapping in. Definitely have a blessed night. We will see you all again Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we keep moving this needle. I heard you, Ariel, tell me to take your resume with me. I got you. I said, you make me want to go get a job. He said, take my resume with you. And we're going to make it make sense. All right. Love is love. Everybody have a blessed night.
Bless you.